Welcome, race fans, to the ETV Live Pitreport, powered by Halls on Post. For all your tax and accounting service needs, visit hallsonpost.com. I am Kyle Taraska, alongside absolutely nobody. For the second week in a row, my partners have left me high and dry on the outside. Just to review, Josh was in a unfortunate car accident, and he was a little banged up last week. This week he's dealing with all the insurance company and the fun stuff. Last I heard, I talked to him about an hour ago. Dakota Ehrman, he's supposed to join me again for a second week, but I don't know where the hell he is. He's supposed to call, I don't know, he's supposed to be in by the first segment. He's got a little bit of technical difficulties on his end again, but he should be here by the time we start segment 2. A lot to cover tonight. Big news, and the biggest news going on in motorsports today. Denny Hamlin being fined by NASCAR $25,000 for his comments after that he made on Fox Live during the post-race show after the Phoenix race, the conclusion over there. Complaining that the new Gen 6 car is very difficult to drive in the pack, very hard to pass, and pretty much the car is everything that NASCAR set out what they did not want to set out for. Pretty much said that the car is worse than the COT, and NASCAR didn't like that, so NASCAR spanked him on the wrist and dropped him with that big fine. Where the story really gets interesting, in case anyone has not heard of the story today, he pretty much told reporters that the fine is BS and that he don't want to pay it, and he's not going to pay it. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, because by NASCAR rule, if he does not pay the fine, I don't know if there's a specific date he has to pay it by, but he will not be permitted to race in his car, so in other words, he'll be suspended. But I don't know if that means that he has to pay the fine, or Joe Gibbs Racing, FedEx maybe, or an anonymous third party. I mean, thinking about it, $25,000 really doesn't mean much to these drivers when they make multi-millionaires, but I think it's just a whole point. He's pissed off that he's being treated unfair. NASCAR felt that it was he was bashing the product, something that they do not want to have their drivers talk about. Let me see here. I got an official quote here. Let's see here. I'm reading on jski.com right now. Hamlin quoted, this is, and I quote, "This is the most upset and angry I've been about anything in really, really, really long time, especially anything that relates to NASCAR. The truth is what the truth is, and I don't believe in this, and I'm never going to believe in this. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to pay the fine. If they suspend me, they suspend me. I don't care at this point," end quote. A lot of frustration out of there, for sure. Have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could call in 1-317-489-9388. Obviously, the phone lines are wide open because I don't even have a co-host right now, so I'm just talking to myself and my fine listeners that are listening on the opposite end of the radio. So if you call during the first segment, your call will be guaranteed to be answered, and you'll be live on the air. So to continue on for what I was saying here, I got a lot of respect for Denny Hamlin after this. It's just my opinion. I think that the whole issue with this controversy is that NASCAR, they're really concerned with this car. They know that this is a very critical time for the sport right now, and this car really has to succeed. Everyone knows what happened with the COT in '07 at Bristol in March when Kyle Busch won the race, and he came in the victory lane and said the car sucked. He didn't talk about how good the race was. He's proud that he won. Like one of the first things he said that came out of his mouth was, "This car sucks." And that's, in so many words, that's what Denny Hamlin said after the conclusion of the Subway Fresh Fit 500 that Carl Edwards won in the Subway car. So unfortunately, NASCAR is dropping the hammer on him. They're not pleased with it. I think they're scared that if this trend continues with drivers complaining, and to be honest with you, Hamlin wasn't the only driver that complained after the race yesterday. He was just the most outspoken out of the bunch. I know Junior made some comments after saying it was difficult to pass. Hence, when he referred to the whole incident with Casey Mears and Carl Edwards racing him off a pit road, and Mears kind of cut him off to get into his pit stall. Junior said he lost the race right there because it was hard to pass. I know Brad Keselowski made some comments. I'm not sure what Jimmy Johnson said about the car. I know he had some comments about Carl Edwards. with his restart procedure. I don't know, what a pansy. Uh, but the point is that NASCAR, they're trying. My opinion is they're trying to dictate the sport way too much. They're shooting themselves worse in the foot by finding Jimmy Denny Hamlin rather than just letting him speak his mind and say whatever. If the car sucks, the car sucks. Um, what else can you say? There needs to be, maybe Hamlin was a little harsh, but if I was NASCAR, I would look at it as constructive criticism. Hamlin gave his feedback. The car, I mean, I think Brad Keselowski said that this is the easiest car he's ever driven by himself in the pack, but it's the most difficult car that he's ever driven in a pack of cars. But so it's interesting to see how this is going to play out. I don't know what's going to happen with Denny Hamlin getting fined by NASCAR. He's supposed to pay the fine. We'll see what happens after the conclusion of today, going into tomorrow, if NASCAR will permit him to be on the track tomorrow. And with that being said, we'll move on to the next segment. Well, we'll not move on to the next segment. We'll move on to the next topic, excuse me. We'll continue talking about the Phoenix race, not let alone Denny Hamlin's comments, but just the race in general. Hot topic this week on Sirius XM Radio, NASCAR Channel 90, is people are complaining that the lengths of these races are too long, which I kind of find ironic since Phoenix is actually one of the shortest races of the year. Personally, as a race fan, when I go to a race, I want as much time at the track as possible. If I'm going to pay a couple years, Pocono's my home track. For the 2012 season, they shortened their races from the traditional 500 miles to 400 miles to make the races more exciting. Were the races good? They were excellent races. Did I think they were good with the extra 100 miles on them? I thought so too. I didn't see really that big of a difference. Every race has its exciting points. I mean, the middle, it could be dragged out, but just like every other sporting event. The middle, it upsets me, and a lot of people blame it on the younger generation, but at my age, I feel that I'm the younger generation, and I don't feel, I do not agree with the majority of people. The middle of the race sets up the ending. If you want these most exciting finishes, Ricky Craven and Kurt Busch coming to the door-to-door at the line at Darlington, or Kevin Harvick and Mark Martin photo finish at Daytona in 2007, or whatever. There's plenty of finishes, just like 2 years ago at Talladega when they came across the line 4x4, Jimmy Johnson won. Well, how did those drivers get there in the first place? Well, you find that out in the middle of the race. They just don't start the race, and then they just plop in the middle of nowhere, and they just fall from the sky and all right, guys, 20 laps to go. We're going to put you here, here, and here, and let's just run the whole other half of the race that doesn't matter. Racing is built on strategy. Racing is built on strategy. The pit strategy is what makes the race to make it exciting at the end. And on that note, we're going to take a quick commercial break. I think Dakota's trying to come in here on the other side of the line. About 2-minute commercial break here for you guys. We'll continue the topic. I'll get his opinion on the Denny Hamlin controversy down in Las Vegas. We'll continue the lengths of races. And we got plenty more to talk about here on the ETV Live Pit Report.
Hi, I'm Angela Hall, CEO for Halls on Post Incorporated. We are the premier income tax preparers to the sim racing community. You sim racers know that where you live is not a barrier to working with others. So please do not let your local income tax prep stores hijack you into paying their expensive fees up front by taking them right out of your refund. Here at Halls on Post, we do things a lot differently. We will prepare your return, review it with you, e-file it, and release your file copy, and you will not have to pay in advance for any of these services. Sim racers, please believe me when I tell you that we are the only tax practice out there that will allow you to pay after you receive your refund. The only catch is this: you promise me that when your refund arrives, you will make Halls on Post Incorporated the very first check you write. So make the switch to Halls on Post Inc. We will hop right on it and treat you respectfully, discreetly, and fairly. No gimmicks and no hidden fees.
Back here on the ETV Live Pit Report, powered by the HD Radio Network. my partner in crime, my new partner in crime for the second week in a row, Dakota Ehrman. You're back live in the studio after being only 10 minutes late. That's acceptable. I show up to class sometimes 10 minutes late. They don't say nothing to me. So I guess I can't complain about you. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. Yeah, a little bit of thing going on over here, but glad I could be here and get back in here the second week in a row.
Well, we're glad to have you. So the first segment of the show, when I was just talking to myself, we were talking about the incident, the big news in the NASCAR world today with Denny Hamlin. He was fined $25,000 for his comments during the post-race of the Subway Fresh Fit 500 at Phoenix, saying that he pretty much said the Gen 6 car sucks, NASCAR didn't like it, and then they slapped him with this penalty. And the story really gets interesting when Hamlin came back today and said that he refuses to pay the penalty because it's a bunch of garbage. Thoughts, comments, opinions?
Well, I gotta kind of agree with him there. I mean, it was kind of a stupid thing. I think that penalty was kind of stupid. I mean, he did voice his opinion, and if you go back, I was actually viewing a conversation over it a little bit earlier, and somebody brought up the point. I mean, Kyle Busch, when it was back with the COT, I mean, Kyle Busch, he kind of raged about the car, probably gave it a lot of bad names, used a lot of violent language, this and that. NASCAR didn't do anything, but Denny Hamlin was rather polite about it. I think he was just, voicing his opinion, and now he's in trouble and going to be, kind of quiet the rest of the season. You don't get to hear that from a driver. I like to actually hear what the drivers have to say and what they think, and NASCAR's not really allowing that anymore, it seems like.
I 100% agree. I thought that was perfect. That was awesome television. That's the kind of stuff that's going to help ratings. Not these guys being all mellow or whatever. Just, they're asked a question, they sidestep the question, they thank their sponsors, and they go back into the motorhome. When he came out of the car on Sunday, you could see the emotion. Again, he kind of got a bad rap for it since he started, I think, 41st after the engine change, and he ended up in third by the end of the day, so it's like obviously he had to pass cars somewhere, but they were saying, and his excuse was, oh, well, most of the passes were on pit road, whatever. But the point is that obviously this car is a work in progress. I've never seen a piece of technology that's come straight out of the box that has been perfect from day one. I mean, not to bring up another topic, but even like Apple, with the iPod and the iPad and everything. Look how many different versions it's taken to really perfect it, and people are still up. They'll never 100% be for the product. They're always going to find something wrong with it, and unfortunately, that's what we're going to find here with the Gen 6, at least for the time being. The COT, by the end of its era, I mean, it wasn't the prettiest looking car, but it was quite competitive. The racing is more competitive now than it was in the late 80s, early 90s, where according to most race fans, apparently that was the most competitive, best racing ever in NASCAR history. I don't know, bunch of crap. I don't see how a race being where a driver leads 90% of the laps and wins by, almost laps the whole field is more entertaining than the racing we have on the track today. But yeah, if they want the racing to be as good as they could potentially be, yeah, the car's going to need work. Was Hamlin a little bit harsh? Yeah, he was a little bit harsh, but he didn't go overboard. He didn't say anything wrong. But NASCAR is scared. They don't want the car to start off on a bad foot, just like the COT did, because it was like once Kyle Busch made those comments after Bristol, it was like after that the car was doomed. There was no hope for the car. No matter what they did to the car, no one liked it. I don't think that's going to happen with this car, but I think that's NASCAR's major concern. I think that's why the penalty came down so harsh on Hamlin this afternoon.
Yeah, and one thing you do want to look at, I mean, the cars before, like the COT, when it was competitive, the cars were just yawed out. They looked really stupid. I mean, when you watched them go down the track, like down a straightaway, I mean, they looked like the rear end was just hanging way out from behind the front end. I thought that was kind of stupid looking. They've actually fixed that, it seems like, with this Generation 6 car, and I'm kind of happy about that because, it makes it look more like a race car rather than I don't even want to know what to call that.
Yeah, and like you said, it looked weird or ridiculous, but the car itself. But what's your opinion? What did you let's say the last 2 years, once they took the spoiler and the splitter braces off of the front end, what was your opinion? Not the way all the cars looked, but the competition on the track that we witnessed.
I thought it was intriguing. It kind of jumped around a little bit. We'd have like 1 year we had Carl Edwards who went out there and tied for the points that he ended up losing. But somebody like that, and then the next year you see him way down there struggling all season long. It was stuff like that we saw that all seems like the whole time we had that car, nobody could really figure it out. It made it interesting. We could see a different winner every week, or every few weeks. It would be a lot of good racing in the end, but it would be kind of quiet, if you know what I mean there.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the racing was fine. It wasn't anything different than what I've seen in the past. This aero push and everything like that, that existed with the Gen 5, the car from 2000 and earlier, from like the mid to late 90s through the early part of the 2000s. Messing with the air, that existed back then too. Why do you think there wasn't no tandem racing at these at Daytona and Talladega? I mean, yes, the tracks were beat up and the bumpers didn't line up properly, but what did they do? They played with the air. They did side drafting, they did this, that, and everything. Pretty much everything that we saw in the Daytona 500, but instead of going single file for only 20 laps, they did it for 180, unfortunately, for the 500. I don't know what else to say. Passing should be difficult. This sport is not easy. This is not the premier racing series in America for no reason. And I'm sure anyone who's listening in Indiana, they probably just had a heart attack right now because I said that and I didn't say that about IndyCar. But it's the truth. This is not an easy sport to participate in. These are the best. These are supposed to be the best of the best drivers. Whether business or sponsorship dollars have something to do with that, Danica. But this is supposed to be the most highly competitive series in America. These cars are supposed to be difficult to drive. What Keselowski said, these are the easiest cars that he's driven by themselves, but the hardest they've driven in the pack. Maybe it put on a better show if they were harder to drive by themselves and easier to drive in the pack. I don't know how to accomplish that. There's smarter people out there to figure that out than me. But I thought the race I don't know why people were complaining. I thought the race on Sunday at Phoenix was an excellent race, and I'm sure most people felt that way too. But now because all of a sudden the drivers say they can't pass, even though I saw plenty of passing, now the car sucks.
Yeah, I still like the car, and I mean, if you go back and you actually look at what's happened to this car, it's not much different than the old car. I mean, it's more like the old car with some weight changes, body changes. I know in the front end they've lost a few abilities to change some things. Like
well, the chassis are the same. It's the sheet metal that goes on the car. The chassis are other than a couple adjustments to the greenhouse to make them a little bit safer, the chassis are the same. Pretty much what you were just saying.
Yeah. I mean, they lost a few, changeable things in the front end. They gained some in the rear end with the cameras that, are supposed to make it grip a little bit better. It's not that different from the old car, actually, which is what makes it extremely interesting, minus the fact that they can't really yaw it out like they could before.
Yeah, but like we were just saying before, the racing was never that bad with the COT. The cars just looked like crap. Now we're probably going to get the same, if not better, racing. See, here's the thing. When the COT was, and fans have to remember this too, when the COT was put out into production, so to speak, the first race in 2007 and beyond, whatever was there was there. There wasn't that much to work with. The Generation 6 car, even though it's the same chassis, what NASCAR is allowing the teams to do, and what little tricks that NASCAR has up their sleeves, there's a wide range of opportunity for this car to improve. This car could only get better. The way I look at it, if Denny Hamlin said that the race on Sunday sucked, then I'm very pleased with how the race went, because the way I look at it, that's as bad as it's going to get. And I thought that was a great race on Sunday. So if it could only get better from there, I cannot see that being a bad thing for the sport.
Yeah, and I've been doing a research paper actually for a school thing on this Generation 6 car, and I read somewhere in an article, I want to say it was, I can't quite remember what it was, but I do want to say that when they tested these cars, they focused on the mile and a halfer. So I think this week at Vegas will actually make it possibly even better racing. I think we might actually see what we kind of expected, and get a better race than Phoenix. And Phoenix wasn't that bad at all, like you said. It was actually a pretty good race. So I'm excited to see what they do at other tracks like the mile and a halfers.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like you said, that was the major emphasis on this car, was the mile and a half program, because those are the tracks everyone complains about. 1-317-489-9388. Phone lines are wide open. Have about 10 minutes before the next commercial if you guys want to get your questions, comments, or any type of concerns in, be heard live on the air here on the HD Radio Network. So pretty much we're on the same page here when it comes to the competition, the car, everything in that area. I think so that covers half of the story with the Denny Hamlin thing. The other part of the story that's important that I think race fans are interested in is the part that NASCAR is dictating the drivers of what they can and can't say, and I really believe that this is what's hurting the TV ratings, the fans at the track, etc. The drivers cannot be themselves.
Yeah, that is the kind of stupid thing there. I really don't like that. I really don't like that they penalized Hamlin like that. And I think I like the way he reacted. I mean, he doesn't care if he's parked. It's if they're going to react like that, fine, then I'll react the same way or worse. But I really want to see what NASCAR does, what the next move is for the NASCAR officials on him. And I know I read that they're not really going to make any big thing here soon. I mean, if Hamlin chooses to appeal, he can still race, and I mean he's still got a while to pay, I believe is what I saw.
Yeah, I mean everything's going to come down to if they choose to appeal. I'm sure that's probably what's going to happen. But here's the problem. Okay, everything. I mean, this has been going on for a while, and a lot of it everyone blames the sponsors. That the sponsors, they want all their drivers to have this clean look, everything like that. But Miller Lite, they've kind of taken a different approach, I guess, by letting Brad Keselowski, free speech, whatever he wants to say. They don't have a problem with it. I mean, for God's sakes, the guy was drunk, which I thought was one of the best things ever that I've seen on live television. Brad Keselowski being interviewed drunk on SportsCenter after he won the championship. I mean, that's what our fans. Maybe that's not what the rest of the sports world wants to see, but that's what our fans. That's what NASCAR race fans want to see. They want to see the drivers. They want to see them in their comfortable state, their true personality. I mean, when I watch a driver on TV, I want him to be just like if he was at home hanging with his buddies, drinking a beer, and that's what Keselowski brings to the table. And Keselowski's very outspoken. During Speed Weeks, he had that interview with USA Today, and he came out and said a lot of things that are wrong with the sport, and why the sport's in trouble, and what needs to be done to correct it. And it was a very sensitive topic for NASCAR. There was a lot of it was what I know. One of the deals was which I really never took into account until I was actually at Daytona for the 500. I have Verizon service, and obviously the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, the Sprint phone. They carry they're the primary sponsors of the series. Brad Case was saying how they pretty much put blockers up at the track, so only the Sprint service really gets the best service, signals, whatever you want to call it, at the track on Sunday. I was there from Thursday, Friday, Saturday. My phone service was excellent. Sunday during the 500, pre-race and during the race, I couldn't get any service. And then as soon as the race was over, my phone worked fine. I mean, what kind of BS is that? And Keselowski pointed that out. And there were a bunch of other things just with sponsorship, and that there are a lot of parties within the NASCAR organization. They're not all on the same page. Everyone's trying to fight against each other. It's like the damn Senate. And that's pretty much how he described NASCAR. And then the next day, he got called into Brian France's office, and and pretty much gave him a slap on the wrist. And I don't know what was said in there, but I'm just speculating that France told Keselowski not to talk like that again. But everything he said was true. It was everything that the fans wanted to hear. And like I said, everything that he said, 99% of the stuff he said was true. And, NASCAR they have to let their drivers speak freely. Just if Denny Hamlin thinks if the car sucks, let him say the car sucks. Who the hell cares? I'm not gonna stop watching NASCAR because Denny Hamlin said on the TV last Sunday that the new Gen 6 car sucks.
Oh, the new car sucks. Somebody said the new car sucks. Somebody called the police. It is kind of what I feel like right now. I mean, honestly, it's 2 races in. Why even listen to what anybody said? I mean, you can form your own opinion. Why does his matter? I mean, he can state his opinion. He shouldn't be punished for it. Everybody has an opinion. I'm sure NASCAR has a high opinion of this car because they spent so much time on it that but whatnot. But they shouldn't be doing what they're doing. And the thing you pointed out with the Sprint service, and how they kind of knock away all service from other phones, stuff like that. It's things that they do like that. That's kind of irritating actually, and that's why I will probably never physically attend an event I'll just sit through the endless commercials, I guess, instead.
I agree. I love going to my races. Um, I wouldn't give them up for anything. But I don't really use my cell phone during the race anyway. I go to watch a race. I don't go to stare at my. I don't pay $90 a seat or $100 or however much a ticket is to stare at my phone for 3 hours. But like I said, that's just another incentive that the NASCAR's struggling with. That Keselowski pretty much said this is wrong. This is how we could fix it, and NASCAR didn't want to hear it. So on that note, I think this topic's pretty much done. I know we had one caller come in. I couldn't get to your call. We're going to go to a quick commercial break. If you want to call again during the commercial, we'll try to get you on for segment number, what's this, 2 or 3? I don't even know what the hell it is. This is the ETV Live Pit Report powered by the HD Radio Network.
Sponsored by Barbaro Racing, VRC Virtual Racing Chassis, Real Sim Racing, Full Throttle Cup Series returns to ETV Live in 2013 every Monday night, 9:20 p.m. Eastern. A full 36-week season. Join Mike Keaton and Wesley Allen as they call the action from the booth, and Dakota Ehrman reporting from pit road. Strap in and buckle down, Cowboy. 2013 Full Throttle Cup Series on Monday night is back in the saddle again. Flag-to-flag coverage provided by ETV Live, the only choice for your online racing broadcast entertainment. See us at etv-eplay.net. Coming to ETV Live Super Speedway Cup Series brings some new and exciting racing entertainment on Friday night. In shootout-style, drivers compete in hot lap heat races to qualify for the feature event. Drivers run the 3 heat races, then on to the Dash for Cash 15-lap showdown, and then ramp it up as they move on to the B main and A main feature event. Word has it they give the flagmen the night off, so no cautions, Cowboy. Buckle in and sit back and hold on tight. You're in for a night of fun racing entertainment once again, brought to you live by ETV Live, your online autosports entertainment network, ETV.
From the real world to the virtual world, as we just talked about Denny Hamlin assessing the new Generation 6 car in the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, we're going to talk about the new Generation 6 car in the iRacing.com NASCAR Series, just released about 2 weeks ago. The Ford Fusion version of the Gen 6 was released today. Dakota, you're in iRacing just as I am, and this is a sim racing show as well as a regular racing show if you want to portray it as that. And just a reminder to our viewers that as we talk about the Gen 6 car, if you want to talk about the iRacing version, the NASCAR version, Denny Hamlin, or anything else in between, 1317-489-9388. Dakota, what's your opinion so far on how would you grade the iRacing Generation 6 car from the laps that you ran on it so far?
I give it a B+. I like the car. I think they did a fantastic job of getting this car set up. Personally, when it comes down to like the NASCAR iRacing series, which is going to start up here soon, I think it actually starts tonight. In series like that, the fixed series, I don't really like it. I think when they came to the setups for the car, they're just a tad loose. I know if you just take fixed setups out, you tighten it up, just drop a little bit of the right rear spring, it's competitive. But I don't like it in a way that when you're coming off the corner at a lot of tracks, it feels like it's not right enough. Something's not right just in the right rear area of the car. And I know Phoenix, it was at Phoenix testing it there also, and it's like it wants to pull to the wall just oddly. I don't know how to describe it. It's just not right when it wants to go right next to the wall. It's not tight. It's just not right.
Yeah, I hear it. I've ran multiple laps on it. I haven't run an official iRacing event with it yet. I've done some hosted sessions. Let's see. I've done. Hang on. But yeah, I've done some hosted sessions with it. I've done at Daytona, Atlanta, Charlotte.
I really like Vegas in it. Vegas is interesting. I know. Got to use the outside lane really through 1 and 2, and that can make it interesting. You still have to tighten up the car though, and that's what makes it weird. And when you go to tracks like the Talladega and Daytona, like he was talking about, that's also interesting because it's weird. I mean, it wants to get extremely loose in the tribal, which we've seen them talk about on TV, but there's almost nothing you can do to fix it here on iRacing. That's the problem. Is I've searched. I spent a good few hours now, maybe looking into it. I've had guys looking into it, and that's the one thing is we don't parade around the outside. We parade around the inside at Daytona and Talladega because that's where the fast lane is. You can use the outside, just not as well. It's kind of like the inside lane at Daytona was the Daytona 500. It doesn't work very well, and it kind of sucks. But I mean, when you get to those tracks and you got to be on the bottom where the speed is, and you're getting loose down there, you're actually you're almost spinning out trying to stay down there. It doesn't work, especially if you're getting pinched down by the outside lane. There's be a whole lot of wrecks, and I think that's going to be to blame. Other than that, though, the Gen 6 cars are really good at the super speedways, so kind of hard to push, but that's a good thing.
Alright, I'm back now. I'm having technical difficulties on my end. For whatever reason, these calls are not coming through correctly. Just keep calling. I'll do my best to get you guys on the phone here. Anyway, to continue, before I don't know, I went into the danger zone over there. The car drives good. I know what the exact feeling that you're talking about. I feel there's a lot of wheel spin, as if I've only done fixed setup races so far, and it's like the rear end just does not get hooked up for whatever reason. It's like constantly spinning the tires. I think that's the feel that you were talking about, where it always just wants to crab right up to the wall, especially off the corners, down the straightaways or whatever. I remember at Charlotte in the one hosted session I did, I came in, I took 4 fresh tires, and on the restart, I didn't even gun it. I just eased into it, and it just automatic tire spin. I don't know if that's realistic or not. I mean, I've never driven an actual Gen 6 car, but for whatever reason, that's the feeling that I get with the car. For a perspective, for a feeling vantage point, it kind of drives like the B car. I don't know if you feel the same, but it feels like it drives like the B car at a much faster speed, Dakota.
Well, personally, I'm a huge fan of the B car. I love the B car. I love to spend a lot of time on the B car. It's probably my primary car, and I'll run that on the iRacing service all the time. When I get in that Gen 6 car, I don't feel the B car. I've heard that several times, so people saying that it feels like the B car, just higher speeds. There's a bit of a difference, I think, and it's not quite like the B car. It has similarities, but not quite like the B car. Even with the higher speed, I'm sure that does throw me off a little bit, but it's just something's off. Something's not right. I think they're going to fix it probably soon, hopefully in the next build. But I still think it needs a little bit of work. And again, I give it a B+. It is a rather good car. Just a little bit tweaking, I think, and this thing will be, probably one of my favorites on the sim.
Yeah, I'm probably right around there, that BB plus range. The graphical part of the car looks absolutely amazing. They did an excellent job with making these cars. I'm not sure how the Ford Fusion looks. I haven't looked at it yet. I've seen pictures of it, but I was never actually in the game with it yet. And for all those wondering, with the Ford Fusion, it is $11.95 to buy. Unless if you did not already have the Generation 6 car, but you had the Chevy Impala, I believe they gave a $6 coupon for anyone who wanted to buy the Gen 6 car. If you did not buy the Chevy SS yet, I'm pretty sure you could buy the Ford Fusion. Dakota, I'm pretty sure you have more information on it than I do. But as of right now, if you already have the Generation 6 Chevy car and you want to buy the Ford Fusion, it is $11.95. As for the car itself, there have been many reports in the forums. Now iRacing has came out and said that the Ford Fusion drives exactly like the Chevy SS. It's the same physics build. It's just the look of the car is different. So if you're a Ford guy and you're tired of racing Chevys your whole life on the NASCAR side with iRacing, buy the Ford. I'm sure it's worth it to put $12 out. If not, if you're happy with the Chevy, just stick with the Chevy. If you already have the Chevy, you can download the car. This way you will be on the track with the Ford Fusion, but you actually have to buy the car in order to race it.
Yeah, and if you're a Ford guy, you get in the Chevy SS. Once you're inside the car, you won't know it's a Chevy because we have the Ford dashboard. I believe it's a Roush Fenway Racing dashboard in both cars, which is a little bit intriguing. And that's
really? I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, they're hoping to actually add where you can kind of change dashboards, like customized dashboards, which would be kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't gone in that route yet. See, I think, and that's a problem with iRacing. They don't allow any type of modding, and modding is what built sim racing. I mean, if you look at NASCAR 2003, I mean, everything is quote unquote underground right now. But look at all the modding that's been done in that game. Why is that game still alive? Because there are modders out there that create the tracks that, or to create the current look of the tracks to the best of their ability for whatever the software permits. They make the cars. They've made this. This game came out in 2000 and late 2002, early 2003. I don't remember the exact date. And then there's people that race on there, and they run the COT cars. They run Aero 88 style cars, like the style of cars that you've seen on the circuit in the 1980s. And I'm sure someone's already made a Generation 6 mod, and if not, it's going to be. I'm sure it's coming out soon. Even with the Sim Factory, they're not all high on water about modding in their game specifically, but when it comes to actual modding. If people mod tracks or whatever and they want their physics on it, the Sim Factory, they're open to that, where they would help the modders out to just make their tracks as realistic as they possibly can. I mean, obviously the tracks would never be 100% correct, but they could make it to the best of their ability. And I think that's going to bite iRacing in the ass down the road. It is a lot of money to race on there, and it's just. And I remember you were saying when I came back on after my technical difficulty, how you were saying it for like the Daytona 500, everyone rides along the outside. In iRacing, for the most part, you were saying we all run along the inside. There's absolutely like no outside lane that you could really make work consistently on iRacing. It's always one groove no matter what track you race on. And as much as the tracks are realistic when it comes to, and I'm not here to bash the sim, but just giving my opinion from my experience on there, and as you all know, I'm heavy into the Sim Factory, but I'm also heavy in iRacing. I've invested a lot of time and money into it. The tracks are as realistic as you could get right now at the laser scan when it comes to the bumps, graphics, everything. But the way how the tracks actually drive, it's not. I don't know if that's more the way how the tracks are or the way how the cars are. Just like Dakota, we were saying with the Gen 6, how it feels like a constant tire spin when you're driving the car. I don't know on which side of the fence is more to blame, but there's definitely something wrong.
Yeah, and I think it's more of a track deal. I know I've talked to a lot of DOC drivers, and that's the lecturer we have here. But what they do right now is they're wanting to make it kind of dynamic. Where you can go up there and run up there and kind of build up grip. Tire wheel build up, so you can actually start to use that outside, later into a race. That's what they want to do, but that's going to take a lot of time to be able to do, rather than, maybe throwing a grip strip up there, which they could do at a lot of tracks, which would, set this thing up. You could use 2 lanes. That would be kind of cool. There are tracks that you can go side by side for a while, but you can't actually, use that lane all the way around the track. There is the only exception I want to say is Las Vegas. When you're in the B cars, you can use the outside and keep up with the inside. That's actually, I've had a race where you've had guys on the inside and you've had guys on the outside. Just in that corner, though, it's only one corner. It's really the only one on iRacing I know of that is really like that.
Yeah, and I think that's what the iRacing drivers and fans, that's what they're looking for. Like when you go to Atlanta, I want to be able to race somebody. If I want to go all the way up against the wall, and there's someone that, and then say if I'm all the way up against the wall, and Dakota, you're already on the white line, on the bottom of the track through the corners, our time should, on worn tires, they should be almost equal, and they should make for some very competitive racing. But you got to bottom feed around the whole track. And when I mean the whole track, literally the whole track, at least with the trucks, I've done about 3 or 4 races this week in the C-Fix series, and it was fun. It kind of felt like an old school Daytona. You just had to stay in the draft. The track was slick. The setup was loose, and it really had to have a good handle on the truck. But, I mean, even down the backstretch, you just rode on that white line just to protect the inside because the outside was just absolute garbage. And like I said, I'm not here to bash the sim. I'm not here to tell you that one sim, R-Factor, iRacing, ARCA, anything like that. I'm not trying to tell you that one sim is better than the other. But I just wish that it would be some way, shape, or form, and I think with a couple of grip strips or however they could do it, where they could make these lanes more equal and make it for some more competitive racing. And even if they did that, where if these tracks were more realistic, where you could run the high side in the low lane, the cars would be able to spread out more, there wouldn't be as many wrecks in these short races, and the racing would be a lot better. It would be a lot better experience for the people who actually run iRacing and for their consumers.
Yeah, and I really wish they would do something, with the tracks that we have. The one track that I mentioned in Las Vegas, you can use the outside, the inside, through one corner. That's the only track, and I know you can do that in several cars. I know the trucks, it's bottom. That's really the only track that you can do that. Everywhere else, you do not have a lane choice. It's only one turn in the track, but everywhere else, like Darlington, one groove, and you go in low, move up next to the wall, stay up next to the wall, and kind of slowly arc
Yeah,
down.
well, Darling. I don't want to cut you. Darlington's kind of a different story. That's really a one groove track in real life too. The one track that really comes to my mind is Bristol. It's correct by mistake, but back in the day when before the track was reconfigured for a second time, when we were supposed to go 2-3 wide around the track, the outside lane's the place to be. It overpowered the inside lane every single time. There was just no grip on the inside coming off of the corner. But now based off of what we saw in the Cup race there in August, with the whole thing with that race when Tony Stewart threw the helmet, yeah, everyone knows that race now. Now the outside is the place to be at Bristol, so now it kind of worked out in their favor, but it happened by mistake. So it's just, I don't know. I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm for like the 5th time in a row. I'm not here to bash the sim. I love iRacing just as much as I love Arca Sim Racing. I really like their format. I love the Gen 6 car. I think just as they need to make some tweaks in NASCAR, they need to make some tweaks on iRacing to it. But I'm sure as more data comes in from the teams, those cars will get better for sure. And it's going to put on a great show, especially for the DWC guys when they start their series. I don't know when that's going to start. I really like what they're doing with this iRacing Cup Series now for anyone with a D license or higher. Pretty much they're going to follow from starting this tonight through the rest of the season. What is it, Dakota? They're going to do every Thursday and Saturday night before the actual race at 9 o'clock, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's actually, I don't know when, but I think they changed it. It's now Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday at 9.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's interesting. I just thought it was Thursday and Saturday last night. So that's a pretty cool feature. So what it is, they're pretty much going to follow the schedule the best of their ability. Obviously, they don't have every track, so they'll fill in with some other tracks, just as any other sim has done in the past. And, it's cool. They're going to run half the distance at the Cup races. I think the race this weekend is going to be around 133 laps. I'm not sure the exact Cup distance of the race this Sunday from Las Vegas, but I'm pretty sure it's around 266 or so. So it's a good endurance test. It'll kind of give you that feel of what it's like to drive in an actual NASCAR Sprint Cup Series race or whatever kind of racing series you want to be a part of. I think it's great for the consumer. I think the Gen 6 is a great deal. I like what they're doing now where you don't have to buy both cars in order to race in a multi-class session. I mean, even though the Gen 6 Ford Fusion and the Chevy SS are the same class, to say, but just they're two separate vehicles, and I don't have to. I'm a Chevy guy, and I don't have to buy the Ford Fusion in order to race with a Ford Fusion.
Yeah, no, they're supposed to be working on a deal with Toyota. I know somebody tweeted Toyota, and they actually responded that they're actually working on trying to get into the sim. But when you ask Sean Siff about it, it's more like he asks, and all he hears is crickets over there. So we might see Toyota. Don't ask for Dodge. It's not actually a car. I know everybody saw pictures of a Dodge, and they're like, oh my God, Dodge has a Cup car. It actually does not. I've seen the rule book myself. There is no Dodge approved for the NASCAR officially for NASCAR, especially in the Sprint Cup Series this season.
No, the only Dodge is going back to the NASCAR series, as you all know, that Dodge pulled out their support at the end of after last year when Penske pretty much dropped their support to support Dodge. Well, I said support like 5 times in that sentence. Jesus. So pretty much, if you notice, I think it was Mike Harmon maybe. I'm not 100% sure who the driver was, but there was at least 1 or 2 Dodge Challengers in the Nationwide Series race this past weekend, and in Daytona as well. There's no factory support there, but those are pretty much just the under-budget teams. They don't have the money to buy it, they have a Dodge engine, they have a Dodge body, and that's what they're going to show up and race with. NASCAR, it's not anything new. They've done it forever, where they've accepted, even back to the 80s. Maybe they're running a 1987 Oldsmobile. Maybe that's the current year, but there may be a team running a 1985 Oldsmobile. It's nothing new. It's just the car is approved to run in the NASCAR Nationwide Series. I'm sure someone ran a Dodge. well, I guess now it would be different with the new car, but if they were still running the COT bodies and if someone put a Dodge decal on their car, NASCAR wouldn't frown upon it. That's just how it is. And like you said, will Dodge come back into the sport? I don't know. Maybe that's a good topic for next week. But we still have 15 minutes left in this show. The next and final segment, we're going to talk about race lengths. Are they too long? Are they too short? I touched on this in the first segment before Dakota came in. Now we're going to finish it. I am Kyle Taraska with Dakota Airman. This is the ETV Live Pit Report, powered by the HD Radio Network.
Gorilla Customs manufactures cockpit simulation controls and performance computers that are innovative and at the highest level of design and application standard. They work hand in hand with professionals throughout real-world racing to provide technology and fabrication industry's highest level of unmatched quality. Made in the USA, people. Check them out today. Your place for your highest gaming simulation standard, www.gorillacustoms.com.
Team Racing Series returns to ETV Live on Tuesday nights following the Fast Track Racing Series radio show. After organizing a highly successful team series in 2010, Jerry Wolf is back with some kick butt, take no prisoners, team racing action like you have never seen before. The ETV Live Team Racing Series is sponsored by HD Radio Network, live on Tuesday nights from 9 p.m. Eastern. Don't wimp out, dude. Catch the action live at etv-eplay.com.
Back here for the fourth and final segment here on the ETV Live Pit Report, powered by the HD Radio Network with Dakota Ehrman. So let's review tonight. We've talked about the big news in NASCAR. Denny Hamlin, are drivers too mellow? Were they outspoken? Was the fine fair? I think we're both on the same page. It was not. We talked about iRacing Gen 6. We talked about NASCAR Gen 6. For those who have been calling in tonight, I do apologize. I have been receiving your calls, but for whatever reason, the system, it's not letting me actually take the calls without having me disconnect from the actual program that we're on right now. So I apologize for that. I'm not sure what the whole mix-up is. We'll work on that. I'll check on that after the show tonight, and I promise we will have it fixed for next week. So any type of questions you have from the show this week, write them down, take a note. We'll take them next Thursday for sure. And on that note, Dakota, let's conclude the show, which I mentioned before you came on during the first 10-minute segment of this show tonight. Are the lengths of these races, are they too long for, with the demographic of fans that NASCAR might be aiming for, and with times are changing? Is a 3-hour, 3.5-hour, 4-hour race, is that too long of a race to keep people entertained?
I think it depends on where you're at. If you get to a track like Daytona, they're going single file for 180 laps. Maybe we should shorten that for sure, especially a 500-mile race. Even if it's a season opener, it's not worth sitting there wanting to fall asleep. I ended up just leaving them, walking the other room, and you lose viewership that way. It's tracks like that you don't want to do it. Other tracks that you might be single file. Darlington for sure. I think that could be shortened a little bit. There's a few of them that you might want to look into for sure.
See, I agree, kind of, but NASCAR has to honor its tradition. Yes, there's a younger demographic out there. Me and you, we are the younger demographic, but obviously, my opinion is different from yours. I like the longer races, and not so much. I don't think about the fans that watch it that sit on the couch and watch it on TV. I think about the fans that take the time, pay the money, pay the bills to go out to the track for the race, just like me and all my other legions of fans out there that actually go out there and watch the race and at the track in the grandstands. For one, when Pocono shortened their races to 400 miles from the traditional 500 miles this year, and I'm sure you were one of them, and not saying there's anything wrong with that, 90% of the world went like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing in the world. We don't have to sit at Pocono for 500 miles. Am I right? Am I right? Yes.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Kind of, yeah, kind of. You're being nice because I'm here. From my point of view, going to Pocono, when I go to a race, I want to see a good race, but I want to see my heroes. Like, everyone on here, if you don't know by now, I'm a Dale Jr. fan. You can say whatever the hell you want. But if you don't know that by now, you live under a rock. When I go to a race, I want to see Dale Jr. I want to see him do well. I want to see him win. That's why I'm pissed that Jimmy Johnson won the 500. But anyway, I want to see him win and do well, and I want to watch him and his talent, and just like Brad Keselowski, Denny Hamlin, Jimmy Johnson, Tony Stewart, Kyle Busch, Kurt Busch, I don't know who, Jeff Gordon, whoever. I want to see them showcase their talents. Racing, stock car racing, is an endurance. This isn't showing up to a Friday night high school football game, play 12-minute quarters, and then you go home. This is a marathon. I respect the drivers for what they do under the conditions that they are in, with temperatures over 100 degrees. I mean, we're talking even on a hot day. I mean, it could get up to 140 degrees in there. And they're wearing like 3-layer fire suits. It is hot as hell in there. And they somehow manage, I mean, yeah, they have the cooling systems to their helmet, but they manage to go those, 3, 4, 500 miles for 4 hours. The Coke 600, I mean, obviously that's the longest race of the year. That could be almost a 5-hour race. I mean, if you win that race, I mean, that says something about your ability to drive a race car. And like I said, I know NASCAR is trying to aim towards the younger demographic, but if the younger demographic, if they're true race fans, I mean, everyone is a race fan in their own respect, but they have to respect the driver as the individual for their talents that they accomplish while driving in the car, not just going and watch side-by-side, 2x2, 3x3 passing for 400 laps of a 400-lap event.
Yeah, first off, I gotta say, runner-up 2 years in a row, man. He's killing us. He's killing us.
Yeah. Yes, he is, yeah.
Yeah, when you talk about that younger demographic, the sucky part is they're talking about 25% of them. That's talking about, well, what's so interesting about turning left? You can't appeal to everybody, and I think we should. I do like the lengths. I don't quite like watching. I know a lot of people don't like watching it. Unfortunately, it's kind of how it's been. Now it's more like you want to be in the sport. That's why people sim race like myself. It's the closest you can get to the sport. Or I wouldn't mind doing it in a real race car, but when you're watching it, it's just not as fun. It's not the same.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing. There's more to racing than just going out there for 3-4 hours, driving in circles, chasing each other, stopping every so often to get new tires, and then going back on the track and doing the same thing. There's strategy involved. There's the team involvement. I mean, if you listen to a scanner of any type of driver, you get a whole other perspective than if you listen to, like, the broadcast. They can only show you so much on the broadcast. There's a lot that goes into these races, and just not, I mean, the mechanical side of it, what it takes to get these cars set up right. Why is it so difficult to get these cars set up right? I mean, teams, for a Sunday race, they get to the track Thursday. Why is there so many practice sessions Friday and Saturday? What's the point of qualifying? There's so much involved into one event than just what you see for those 3 hours Sunday afternoon. And that's what, instead of NASCAR shortening these races, trying to make it more entertaining for the fans on Sunday, my opinion is they have to get this whole idea out of what makes racing special. What made NASCAR so popular in the 90s? They weren't shortening races, like they weren't attempting to, other than Dover, I believe, and Rockingham was shortened from 500 to 400 miles. But other than that, their whole demographic wasn't to go out and shorten these races. They made them, I mean, they were entertaining. Even though I think, like I said in the first segment, the racing is more entertaining now and more competitive than it was back in the 90s, but fans, they grew an allegiance to the sport. I mean, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, but NASCAR needs to focus on, instead of saying, okay, we're going to go out here for 3 hours and we're going to pass people for 3 hours. That's not going to happen. That's never happened, and it's never will. For passes to happen like that every other lap, and especially as a sim racer, just like you and myself, we understand that. If we get a different perspective of racing. The fans that watch on TV, they need to get a different perspective of racing. And pretty much all the points I just said with the pit crews, the team aspect, the setups, this and that, NASCAR needs to do a better job to emphasize that, to what goes into an event that makes it so special and unique from any other stick and ball sport.
It could take you said, how everybody wants to see, passing every other lap or every lap, something stuff like that. That's not even a realistic idea sometimes. I mean, unless you got a freight train of cars, that car's going to go to the back. That's the only passing you're going to see is somebody getting freight trained. I think when it comes to maybe super speedways, you can see passing every lap. With the tandem, you could at least. You can't quite do that with what we have now, but at tracks like Indy, I mean, sim racing, that it can take a half a lap to a lap and a half just to catch somebody. Especially if they just passed you, you lose all your momentum. You got to go back, catch them, then you got to try to pass them. You got to time. It takes timing. It takes control. It takes skill. It takes a lot. So some people don't realize, and that's the thing. I wish people would kind of look into a little bit more. In the technical side, you spend a few hours in iRacing trying to work on a setup and look at the times that everybody else is running, and maybe like the Generation 6 car, at like a top track, and you see what the top guys are running. I guarantee you'll have a little bit more respect for what these guys in NASCAR are doing, because it's a lot similar, because everybody's running rather close. And they have a lot of work to put in. They have more work to put in than we do, because all we have to do is click a few buttons and we got changes. They spend hours on end, trying to fix this, or trying to make these changes that are supposed to make the car go faster. And if they go the wrong way, then they're in trouble.
You couldn't have said any better. I could not have said it any better than myself. It's like you said, what goes into a pass? Like how you said, it's time, it's momentum, it's skill. My opinion of a good race is, let's put Rockingham for an example, or Atlanta. Let's go with Atlanta since that's currently on the Cup schedule. A track that's known for eating up tires in recent years. I want to see. Sorry, so they restart the race on whatever lap, maybe lap 100, and then the leader, he goes out to like a 3.5-second lead. He's on a rail, burns up his tires, whatever. The second place guy, who was 3.5 seconds back, slowly but surely, he saved his tires. Now towards the end of the run, he's catching that driver, and he's catching him, and he's catching him. Then he finally gets to him. So once he finally gets to him, there's one excitement. Then it's, how's he going to execute the pass to make it successful for him to go into the lead? And then he actually passes him. And it's guys chasing each other. It's not just staying in the pack the whole time within. I mean, I think pack racing is overrated. Just because the guys are, a half-inch apart from each other, or whatever, half a second apart, and they're all running close together, that doesn't necessarily mean they're passing. Passing involves one car fully clearing the car in front of him after he was almost a second, or whatever, couple car lengths behind him. That's what good racing is. And I think that NASCAR fans, the casual NASCAR fans, I think they're having a hard time understanding that, and I don't think that's their fault. I just think it's NASCAR having this fantasy, thinking that they could accomplish something like this. But like I said, it's never happened in the 60-plus years of the sport. It's not going to happen in the next 60-plus years of the sport. They might as well just put, this isn't go-kart racing where you could just control the speeds of the cars to make them even, that. This is competitive big league stock car racing. Everyone is out there to beat the other driver, and that is what needs to be emphasized on the TV broadcast, etc. Instead of trying to dull it down to... And that's another thing, too. I think with the TV broadcast, how they try to aim more towards the casual fan to dull it down, yes, you may need that to dull it down to get them intrigued, but then as soon as you dull it down, get into the specifics of it. Like, make a building block. Educate. Instead of just telling the viewers what's going on, educate the viewers of what's going on. I think that should be the motto for the TV broadcast. The radio, they do a good job over there, and I just think that's what would really build a core fan base for NASCAR.
Yeah, and we talk about setting up a pass. I mean, there's so much involved. I mean, I don't know how you can talk about it all in 30 seconds, because drivers don't have that much time to think about it sometimes. I'm gonna go back to Indy. I was in a car last night, and I was racing. It was a fixed series league, which means we're all in the same setup. So we're going, come down the final laps. I was passing. I mean, if you're watching this, the car goes around you. You've lost your momentum because he's obviously going around you way faster than you can actually go. So I mean, you've got to build up your momentum, catch, and maybe use the draft. You've got to analyze how they're making their turn, so you can make sure you're not overshooting your corner. You got to make sure, maybe see if you can find any more speed. If you can find more speed, you get that huge run. Maybe shoot to the outside. Stay outside. But then if you overdrive the next corner, then you're screwed. You're going to lose that spot. It's all about analyzing. Make sure you hit your marks. And these guys have to really focus in the car. They don't have as much time to think about it as you'd think, and that's what makes everything so interesting and so difficult, really.
And if you think about everything that we just talked about over the last 14 minutes, how would shortening a race affect that? I mean, maybe it would make it, maybe anticipate the drivers to go a little bit sooner and not ride around. But like I said, that takes away the endurance factor of the race because it's all about surviving to the end. And even though it looked really bad, that's what happened in the Daytona 500. Guys saw the wrecks that happened, especially early in the race, and they just tried to survive till the end. And on that note, we are in the closing moments here of the ETV Live Pit Report. Once again, I do apologize for the phone call errors that we had tonight. We'll work on those technical difficulties for next week. Dakota Airman, thank you again for joining me. Rumor has it Josh Gerlach will be back next week, but who the hell knows? That's the best way to put it. I am Kyle Taraska. This is the ETV Live Pit Report powered by the HD Radio Network. We appreciate you listening, and tune in next week.